My dad taught me how to make this, and today I'm going to teach you. I usually don't talk about my dad because, but it's almost Father's Day. Hold on. Sorry about that. My dad died, so I'm going to make a pizza. My dad taught me how to make this pizza when I was a kid. I'm a really picky eater. I get that from my mom. This is the yeast, by the way. This is the part where we put the yeast into the water and then we feed the yeast sugar. And that helps the yeast foam up and come to life. The older I get, the more I recognize things in myself that he was going through at this time in his life. I was a teenager, so I was very wrapped up in my own teenage world. He used to talk about things that I find myself talking about now. He was a big believer in everything is energy. And when your physical self dies, you just turn back into energy. At the time, I would just nod and be like, yeah, that makes sense. But over time, I feel like I finally understand it. I think as we get older, sometimes we lean more into the spirituality aspects and we start questioning, is there anything after this? Was there anything before this? Have I reincarnated a billion different times in a dillion in a dillion different bodies? How much is a dillion? I would assume it's more than a trillion or a quadrillion. I'm going to be the world's first dillionaire. See, I say stuff like that now, and it reminds me so much of him. Maybe we just do become our parents as we get older. I feel like I've spent the last 8 years trying to avoid that fact. There were certain things about my dad that I didn't like. He had an addictive personality. Now I have an addictive personality. He struggled with motivation and he had a lot of really cool ideas, but never followed through on a lot of them. And now, I find myself with a full-time job. I'm 41 years old and I struggle with motivation sometimes. As I grow up, it's like the things I used to judge him for, I'm kind of learning my lesson. And I really wish that I could tell him that. I'm sure that's something we all go through as kids. As teenagers and as young adults, we're like, oh man, we've got this life thing figured out. If only you knew, you old people, you out of touch old people. But then you grow up and you see yourself repeating the same patterns they did. And, sometimes we outgrow them. My grandpa on my dad's side had a lot of anger from what I remember him telling me. And my dad also had that like raging inferno inside him. And I was lucky, he tamed it compared to his dad previously, I think. My dad never laid a hand on me or anything. He would yell sometimes. He had kind of a short fuse in that way, but I didn't live a childhood afraid of my dad. That's for sure. Whatever lessons his dad taught him in that way, he was good and he didn't pass it all on to me. I think, I did get some of the generational rage, and I think that really just comes from repression. We're not taught about emotions as much as we're taught to memorize things. We're not really taught at an early age how to steer difficult emotions in a positive way. That's something we have to kind of learn on our own, and a lot of times we just get trapped in it. Like saying this, I'm not blaming him at all for it. He did a really good job. He was a really good dad. I don't really think I got to tell him that before he passed away. I actually didn't get to be there. I was broke at the time and going through a really hard life period of my own. And I don't think I talked to him a lot in the last couple months. So that's one of my biggest regrets. And, that'll stay one of my biggest regrets. But then who knows? Maybe one day when I die, it'll be just like he said, and I'll float up there as a mass of energy, and I'll be like, oh, hey, we're part of the same thing again. Man, this took a different turn from what I had imagined I would be talking about in this video. I also wanted to talk about some of the good memories I have with him. You know, we had our own inside jokes. There was a time when we were in a mall. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old, just hanging around the mall, and we had to go to the bathroom. So stop by the urinals, and my dad starts singing the song about pee shooting out of him. And then I look over and I see that there's somebody's feet under the stall of the other toilet or whatever. And I start pointing and I'm like, Dad, there's someone in there. And he just bursts out laughing. He didn't even care that there was somebody in there listening to him serenade them about his urine. And then we just never let that go. I even wrote a song about one of our childhood memories. He took me to this ice cream shop in another mall, and there was this kid in line in front of us with his dad, and his dad points to this crazy looking chocolate covered sprinkle cone, and he says, "Whoa, look at that, son. It looks like some kind of killer cone." And the kid got all wide eyed and backed up real slow, and he was like, "I don't want a killer cone." And he got all scared of it. And my dad and I burst out laughing yet again right there in front of the poor kid. But karma came and got me, because that same day I dropped my ice cream cone on the floor of the mall and I started crying. And then I was too embarrassed to go get a new one. He always loved my music. That was one thing he would always tell me, and he would always tell me that he was proud of me. It is really different when a pet dies versus when a parent dies. At least for me. When a pet dies, it's pretty much an instant heartbreak, and your body goes through this immediate withdrawal phase, which can take years on its own. You know, I'm still getting over my dog who passed away like 2 years ago. But with my dad, it was a much longer, drawn out recovery. Like I said, it's been 8 years. And only now am I able to finally grab a microphone and make this pizza video and kind of talk about some of this stuff. I haven't really known how to get over it. I've spent a lot of years eating snacks, smoking too much weed, procrastinating my art. You know, these are all things he used to do too. There were several times in the first few years when I would sit down to try and write a song and I just felt completely blocked. Nothing would come out. No good lyrics. When he was alive, I would make silly songs for him all the time. It was easy. But after he died, it was near impossible to write a song about or for him. It's like my body just wouldn't let me. And so here we are 8 years later, and it seems like I'm finally letting down my guard a little bit. And maybe it's time to finally start letting some of this stuff out. And the only way I've ever known how to let stuff out is with music or with some kind of art form, whether it be video or drawing or whatever. So this is all I know. And the longer I wait, the more I'm going to succumb to these habits. You know, repressed emotions can do a lot of damage. And the older you get, the more they build up if you don't do something with them. So this is me trying to do something with them. Trying to acknowledge that my relationship with my dad was at times complicated, and that's what love is. I think in all honesty, I've been fighting him since he died. You hear the saying all the time that when someone dies, they aren't really gone if you find a way to remember them. I should be remembering him for his creativity, for his hopefulness, for his goofiness, for never taking himself too seriously, for being kind to people in a world where there is so much unkindness. You know, he introduced me to all the stuff I like. He played me my first Metallica song. He took me to wrestling when I was a kid. We watched horror movies together when I was on the floor playing with my action figures. All of the things I loved then are things that I love now, and I'm finally starting to get back in touch with that part of myself that I shut down for a really long time, trying to act like an adult. Usually Father's Day is a reason for me to kind of clam up, lock my bedroom door, and just sleep the day away. But this year I decided to go a different route. I decided to make something to honor him for the first time. I haven't written a song about him since he passed. I've barely been able to talk about it. It's almost like I've just been trying to ignore it this whole time and hope that it goes away, but it's not. It's not going to go away. It's good to talk about this stuff. I actually feel a little bit lighter after recording this. And part of me does feel a little bit weird to go and put this on the internet where anyone can see it, but I don't care. There's always the possibility that it could help somebody else work through some stuff with their own grief or loss.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, boy.
Or somebody could just really want to know how to make a pizza for a picky eater. Or nobody could watch it at all, and I will still have made something for my dad. Can't cut this with one hand. There's a link to that Killer Ice Cream Cone song in the description if you want to listen to it. I wrote it for my dad way back when. I can do this, I just have to do it slow. So yeah, love you, Dad. Happy Father's Day to everybody who is a dad, was a dad, had a dad, all of y'all. Oh, and enjoy the pizza.
Went to get some ice cream with my daddy, and there was some other kid in front of me. His dad said, "Hey there, son, what would you like? Would you like some chocolate chip or Rocky Road? Or hey there, son, what is this crazy thing? It looks like some kind of killer cone."